folks, welcome back to another episode of the BoomBastiCAST. And boy, do we have a great episode for y'all today. Paint you green with envy, paint you Borland. You know what I mean? The man, the myth, the legend, Richard Karn. You might know this gentleman as playing Al Borland in the TV series hit Home Improvement with Tim Allen. The dynamic duo doing it big, running for I think 9 seasons, right?
Yeah. I think it
They
was
ran
nine
that
seasons. Yeah.
large. We've been finding the right time to put Richard in there. We'll say, you know what I mean. We're glad we finally got him. We've been reeling this fish in for a little bit, and he did not disappoint. You know what I mean. We got a really good episode with him. And we're looking forward to giving you all that in a couple seconds. Alex, do you want to say anything before we dip in?
Nothing much. Just that. Not only. Home Improvement. Of course, we all know and love him from. But if you are a fan of family-friendly films, especially those with cute dogs in them, he was in Earbud, Seventh Inning Fetch, Air Buddies, Snow Buddies, and he's been in like episodes of Recess, The Chronicle, That 70s Show,
Yep.
Soul Man, Boy Meets World. And he's been in so many different things, and it's always great seeing him. Especially when he's working with Tim Allen, because as we're going to say, talk about, is that I put them in as one of the great comedy duos, and they work so well together.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, they're great when they show up in other things. For example, Tim Allen has Last Man Standing, and then he also has Shifting Gears, which is going on right now.
Yeah.
Richard has been showing up as guest parts in both of those series. Um, and it's a lot of fun to see him because he's as nice as the characters he plays, and it was a lot of fun talking to him.
Yeah, a lot of fun. He's been in everything, and now he's gonna officially be in everything, being in the world famous BoomBastiCast. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, Tool Time is here. Plug in, and let's welcome to the show for the first time the great Richard Karn. Richard, welcome to the BoomBastiCast.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Anytime, it's a pleasure. We're big fans.
So you guys are in Massachusetts?
We're in Massachusetts. He's more north. I'm South Shore.
Okay. Well, I once did a play in Springfield.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Coldest winter of my life.
Oh my God. Well, that's one of the things we're notorious for, is those cold winters,
Yeah. Well, it was pretty amazing. But I did have my very first boot of beer.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, a glass boot of beer.
Das Boot. Yeah.
Das Boot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we just dug ourselves out of a heavy winter. We just got annihilated with winter with some snow.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't just you. It was most of the Eastern Seaboard, and it even got down into some of those southern states that don't normally get something like that.
We brought it in. They can blame us. Massachusetts brought it to town.
Yeah. Well, you guys get the nor'easters. Nobody else gets that.
Yeah. So theater. Which theater? What were you guys performing? I know my buddy over here, Alex, did some theater in his past.
Yeah.
Well, we were doing a Moliere. We were doing the Miser.
Okay.
The Miser. At the and now I'm blanking on the name of the theater. Stage West.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
I believe. Yeah. Wonderful. I had the best time, and a great cast too.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah. Theater was your original, like the original taste for entertainment, right? Because typically, not typically, I should say, but like you came really kind of from like a working Your dad was a contractor, right? I
My
believe.
dad was a builder, right?
A
Yeah,
builder, yeah.
contractor with his dad, and my mom was an artist.
Okay.
So she painted. I mean, she was also, took care of us, but she was very diligent about, you know, painting and being down in the down in her studio in the basement and painting. And she even taught for a while too.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense then, and it's, I mean, it's a beautiful thing to have an artist in the family like that. I often tell people like you don't really understand how important art is in somebody's life in general, you know what I mean? I think it's one of those ingredients that everybody should do, whether you're sketching or just, painting, whatever. Just
Yeah,
it's good for the soul, you know what I mean?
I do. I don't know if a lot of people realize they can just do it.
Yeah.
Just take a pencil and a piece of paper and do something. I don't, most people aren't that inquisitive about their hidden talents.
For sure. I talk when I talk to people about like sadness that we all get, you know what I mean? It's like I think that the creating something cool from nothing, which anybody really can do, you can sit down, do something, be proud of it. The boost that gives you of creating nothing from something and
Yeah.
important, you know what I mean? It should be pushed a lot more, I think, especially in like an era with like, not to get too serious with it, but like, mental health issues and stuff like that now. Like, I think being creative is definitely something people should work into their dietary doings.
I do. Because it creates a sense of accomplishment, and euphoria in a way when you do something. I had no idea I could do that, or that I was able to finish that, or be able to do, and it might be as simple as changing out a wall socket.
Hmm.
If we get to the home improvement world,
Yeah.
all of a sudden the switch toggle isn't working, and I will just unscrew this plate and see what's under there, and oh well, it's not that tough.
Yeah, definitely. I know that a lot of dudes I know, just the fact that they can do that type of thing, for the family home or whatever, and don't have to like pay someone to do it. They get a lot of pride out of that, I know.
Yeah. Well, and I grew up in a time when we didn't have social media, we didn't have all of this stuff. I mean, if you wanted a how-to video, you might be able to find one at a library, but not really. I mean, you had to maybe watch This Old House or something.
Right.
Now it's at your fingertips. Oh, I got to do this. Well, let me go on YouTube, and there's 20 guys saying, "Oh, do it this way." No, do it this way. This way's easier. This way's, yada yada.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse.
I do have to say, I think it was kind of like almost lightning in the bottle with Home Improvement coming when it did, because I mean you had not only This Old House, you had this new Yankee Workshop, and a lot of other shows like that about how to you know fix up a home, how build a house,
Right,
all those kind of
right.
things, and
That was definitely percolating, and so was the market for, the real estate market was at a weird thing going on there, and people weren't necessarily going to sell their house; they were going to fix up their house and stay there. So all of a sudden, you had this push of people going, well, maybe I should just, knock out this wall and make a little more space here, and then it leads to, a home improvement, explosion across the country.
yeah.
And originally I read that like originally you were just kind of there was somebody else that was going to play Al Borland, but they were doing a movie or something like that, so you were going to do just the pilot episode, but it of
Yeah.
course went further.
Wow. Yeah. When we go back into our own personal lives and we look at things that are connected or possibly connected, why did I end up here, or how did I know this person, or whatever? And you can walk it back and walk it back. And I was able to walk back the whole home improvement, miracle, going back to doing summer stock in Michigan,
Yeah.
basically on, at Hope Summer Rep. I was doing a play with a director where we bumped heads. I mean, we were really kind of, he had just directed this show. at his college. He was the head of Evansville College, and he was directing me like the show he had just done. And I'm going, well, I don't see that. I think I'd like to do this. And, we bumped heads, and then we finally got through it, and it opened, and everything worked. It's like my stuff worked. The things that he brought to it worked. And he goes, okay, all right. This is a good thing. And years later, he calls me to do another thing in Indiana at the New Harmony Project. They needed actors to read plays and screenplays in progress, so that the writers could see or hear, or the dramaturgs could help the writers, with maybe something that wasn't working right, or rewriting something like that. And they used actors like me at, $100 a week stipend. That was my, I go, oh yeah, I think I will leave my apartment in New York City and I'll go to Indiana for $100 a week.
Yeah,
that's what I'll do. You never know who you're going to meet. And God, I met the 3 producers of Home Improvement.
I mean, that was, when people talk about the paying dues part, that was definitely your paying dues, I think.
That's paying dues, but it didn't feel like, well, yeah, I didn't look at it as paying dues. I looked at it as, doing something, just saying yes to whatever, because you don't know what's out there. You just don't. And I think some of that might be taken away from people that watch people doing skits online on Instagram or whatever, where well, this is the way I should do it. And you're all by yourself in your room, creating your own stuff, and you're not out in the world meeting people that will, amplify your creativity.
Yeah. Well, it's a whole new way. That's why I said, like, blessing and a curse with the social media stuff, because it's like, yeah, you'll see someone that's just on their phone, like walking around talking to people, and then they get a huge following, and a movie will come from it, or a TV show will come from it. And
yeah,
it's weird. It's a weird deal, because, like, yeah, the people that look up to them to go, I mean, that's definitely lightning in a bottle, like perfect time and place type deal. Like if you're just literally kind of doing nothing but talking to people and become mega huge, it's like that's lightning in a bottle. Like you can't really copy that. You know what I mean?
Although, you can instantly see yourself.
Yeah.
And you go, wow, that's not what I planned to do. That's me. And some people, take the hint or not, or get better. So it's a whole new world. It's a whole different world. And mine was just, I moved to New York. I just, I moved to New York. I got an agent right away, because I went through a professional training program at the University of Washington, and we had auditions. There were 10 schools in this league of professional training programs, and we all had our senior class auditions in New York. And I got an agent. I moved to New York, and I just started auditioning and going for it, and meeting people, and you didn't do your audition on your phone in your kitchen. You had to go into rooms and meet people and be there and sit in rooms with the other 15 actors that you're all wanting the same role, and you're going, wow, that's so weird, because there's so many different people here that aren't just me. There's this guy who's like way heavier, there's this guy who's way lighter, there's this guy who's it was a lot of fun. And I literally did get to skip that big process with Home Improvement, because when I went into audition, the role had already been cast. So I didn't have this pressure of needing to whatever I put, however you put pressure on yourself for something that you think you can get, so that pressure was off, and I went in and I had this great, wonderful audition. I knew the director, oddly enough, John Pasquin. I had been a reader for him like 10 years before, in New York, when he was casting Basketball Diaries for the Washington Arena Theater. And I was just in there, and I think, I'm not sure, but I think I read opposite, like, people like Sam Jackson, Samuel, all these young kids that hadn't really made a name for themselves were all auditioning for theater out of New York City.
Yeah.
But I knew John, I knew the three creators, Matt Williams, David McFadzean, and Carmen Finestra. And the only person in the room I didn't know was the casting director. I hadn't met her, and I didn't know Deborah Barilski. And so, I'm just in there doing my scene, and I highly prepared. I felt like I really prepared for this audition, because it was just a scene with Tim's assistant, who was Glenn at the time. His assistant Glenn was working on a lathe, and I work up this thing with a friend of mine who helped, directed my audition a little bit, and we came up with the idea that I would make the lathe sound, just why not? So I'm working on the lathe. I'm doing my lines. When you're working with the lathe, you want to share, and they were laughing and this and that. And then John, at the end of the thing, goes, "Hey, can you make the lathe sound like a question?" And I go, "Yeah, I can, because I'm a trained professional." I had this stuff, not necessarily in my back pocket, but I had done weird auditions in school because our teacher would just throw out bizarre stuff for us to have to do in auditions, and so I made it a question. I went, "So when you're, and they laughed, yeah. and I didn't realize for like months later, Tim had that grunt, and then he went, "Oh." He had the question grunt, and they were messing with me. But I went with it. I did it, and they laughed, and it paid off, because when Stephen was cast, Stephen Topolowski from Groundhog Day, he was Ned, and a million other things, But he was doing a play in New York. Actually, I just found this out from Matt. He was in a play in New York, and he couldn't do the pilot. So when they called me up, they said, "Well, Stephen's got this job and he can't do the pilot. Would you mind doing the pilot?" And in my mind, I'm like, why would I mind getting to do a national network pilot? I've never done one. I don't have that on my resume. I didn't even think of the concept of, doing something and then not being asked to continue with it when the show gets picked up, or if the show gets picked up, because at this point, they're just doing the pilot. Nothing is set. They don't know if it's going to get picked up.
Yeah.
And I do it, and they changed the name of Glenn to Al. And at that point, Al didn't even have a last name. He was just, a guest star, Al's, and if the show got picked up, they'd slide Glenn in there with Stephen. So, we do the pilot, and it's 10 days of rehearsal. It's amazing. I got to basically do a hybrid of something, because not that I wasn't familiar with television. I had done little things here and there, but that hadn't been the bulk of my work, of my career. But Tool Time had a live audience. So it was almost like we were doing a play and cameras were watching us. So there was that sense of not, of just kind of being eased into the whole concept of doing TV, which was really wonderful.
That Steve, the Steve actor, I'm a fan of, but I feel like with him playing Glenn at the time, it would have almost been like they would have went for more of like a goof deal, where the Al one and you was more of like a love. No offense to that guy, more of like a lovable. Like I think people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I was too much like Tim. They wanted somebody physically taller, older. They wanted a difference. They thought Tim and I were, because I'd worked with them in Indiana, and we had a great time. I forced them into writing a skit, for the last day. And oh my God, if I had known how hard those guys work, in their day job, which was at the time, they had just finished the first season of Roseanne.
Oh, okay.
And and here we are at 3:00 in the morning writing a skit for, all the people that were working with the New Harmony Project. If I knew how hard they were, I never would have broached that subject. I never would have brought that up. but they did it. They loved it. They were game. So sometimes the stuff you don't know, the innocence of just saying, "Hey, let's do this."
Yeah.
I got a barn. Let's do a play.
What a winning team, man! Coming from Roseanne, which was huge. That
Yeah.
was a huge deal. Like when you started getting into this in the beginning, when did you realize that this was going to be something big? Do you remember?
There were a lot of little things. I didn't know what big meant.
Yeah.
Big. I was doing plays, and it was a set schedule. You went in and you had 8 weeks of a show, and you're looking for the next job. I really hadn't done a long running Broadway show, so I didn't have that under my belt yet. But one of the big one of the big markers, I think, for me was soon after the show started airing in September, maybe early October. I'm an apartment manager. I'm getting free rent to rent out the other apartments in this 30-unit building. I'm an apartment manager, and I get this phone call about 6 o'clock at night, and they go, "Hey, could you come down and take a look? Our kitchen sink is stopped up." And I go, "Yeah, okay, yeah, I can do that. I'll be right down." And I knock on the door, and they open the door, and there's like 15 of their friends standing there, and they're going, "You see, Al Borland's our apartment manager." And it caught me by surprise. It was like, my two worlds crashing together. And I go back up to my wife. I go, "I think it's time to get rid of the day job. I think, maybe we need to buy a house. I have no idea. I've never been able to afford a house, but, maybe we should just do that. Bite the bullet." Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I have to say, one of the things that I loved about Home Improvement and why I think it really worked is like you and Tim were a great comedy team with Abbott Costello. I mean,
Thank you.
reason those comic duos work is because you'll have one who's more of the comic, goofball, and then you'll have the straight man, the like almost audience surrogate, which of course you played in. I mean, I'm a big Abbott Costello fan, and I've read like all the biographies and all of that. And Bud Abbott, being the straight man, was always paid more than Lou Costello because being a straight man is a lot harder than being the lovable goof. So I mean, I don't know how it was in the end with you guys with money wise, but I mean it worked in my opinion because you have Tim, going off and breaking things, and you're just there like, well, I don't think that's a good idea, Tim. And that is what, in my opinion, really made it as lasting as it was because you guys just worked so well off each other that, I mean, honestly, they could have just done a whole thing with just the two of you guys.
I'll tell you, they were not writing for Al.
Yeah.
Because they were going to bring Steven in.
Yeah.
But after the pilot, Steven got another job doing something, and they were going, "Well, we might need you for 2 or 3 episodes." And I'm going, "Well, great, because my wife is pregnant, and I'm an apartment manager, and I can use these other 2, 3, whatever you need, whatever you guys need." And so they're not really writing Al. All Al is me just trying not to upstage Tim.
Right.
I mean, I'll get my little, I'll get my asides, I'll get my little, looks or whatever, because I'm being that guy in the moment. So, in my mind, I'm being, a very serious guy, but I'm going, well, this is funny if I do this. Yeah, but I don't know for sure. But we had a live audience, and the writers were actually watching the audience watch Tim and I because the show hadn't aired yet. Nobody knows who these guys are. So all of our, chemistry laughs that came not just from the amazing writing, but just the stuff that we were doing, in between that was working, and they were writing into that. Mm-hmm. They would see those situations. Okay. And it came to a head that, and I've tried to go back and find the episode when it happened. And in my memory, there's all these things that I remember that never show up on camera, never showed up in the show. They were cut, but they were funny. They were good, but they were cut. But there was an episode where Tim had this joke, and I think I'm even questioning myself now because it's 30 years ago. Yeah. But it was like, hey, Al, you think they call it molding because it's been in the refrigerator too long? And I just, okay, that's a joke. I'm going to let the audience laugh at Tim's joke. I don't want to get in the way. And I just do nothing.
Yeah.
I relax my face. I don't do anything. I don't get in the way. And just as I'm about to say something, my next line, there's another laugh. And I'm thinking, I didn't milk that. I don't think I milked that. I didn't mean to, but I wasn't doing anything, but I got a laugh. Oh, that's nice. And then I went, I don't think so, Tim.
Yeah.
And that got a big laugh. And the writers were like, okay, all right, we see this now. We see this relationship. This is working. We are going to bring you on as a regular. And I was like, wow. And I did nothing. And I learned over the 15 years that I'd spent in New York, let's see, I got to New York in 79, and I moved to California in 90, and I got Home Improvement in 92, 91, 92. So however many years of not trying to do too much. By trying to do too much, when you're not in a secure situation, it just backfires on you. Mm. You're trying to be funny. You're trying to, you're on a soap opera and you have nothing, it's the lead actors or everything, but you're kind of going back and forth, and it's like, you can't do those weird things. You can on SNL because that's the joke, but you can't do that in real life, movie, TV, even theater. So, but I learned, not to just to play the honesty of the moments.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that all about comedy is all about timing, and even the pauses, even kind of like the for example, like what you were saying about how you just waited a bit and that got another laugh, because one of the things I kind of joke around with comedy is kind of like the shock and jaws. Okay, it was more powerful when you didn't see the shock. Okay, and in comedy, sometimes a lot of people think, well, if I make a funny face, if I jump in with a joke and all that, that's how I'm going to get the laugh. But a lot of times, the absurdity of what's going on or what is being said, and you just, you take it in and you take that pause and then you deliver that line. I mean, that line that you delivered probably wouldn't have worked if you were even an inch quicker with that, because of that way.
Yeah, if I had just waited one beat and went, I don't think so, Tim, it wouldn't have been as funny.
Yeah.
Because me doing nothing, and literally, I don't even have subtext. I'm not looking at him going, you stupid, I was just, don't do anything. The audience put all of that in my head.
Yeah.
They're doing all of the work of my face in neutral bitch.
Yeah.
Basically.
It's sharing the moment, they know what you're thinking. It's those moments.
And, for young actors, I think that is something, do improv classes, because you will learn real quick what works and what doesn't work, and not to rush things or when to rush something. But, the improv of the moments can really fill you in, and more TV and film are relying on actors to fill those gaps in with their own stuff.
Yeah.
My theater training didn't prepare me necessarily for that, because we did a script. The script is written. You don't mess around with Shakespeare or Moliere or Neil Simon. It's written. And so you don't add things. It's weird.
Yeah. Did you and Tim ever like have any discussions outside of rehearsals, like get together on your own to work on the dynamic of it? Because I mean, the dynamic's great, like you guys were talking about, and
it was. But Tim came from stand up.
Yeah.
And he was that first year or half of the first year, he was very nervous about being an actor around other actors. I don't know if he felt whether he was good enough or not. I mean, he was, but I don't know if he knew that.
Right.
And so he was, but we didn't necessarily talk about what was going on between us. We just kind of knew.
Yeah.
We just kind of felt it. And Tim would he was the one that would keep pushing the thing. If he had some tool or some prop or whatever, and he would just keep pushing it in my face. And, he wanted me to laugh.
Yeah.
He wanted, he needed that release of making somebody laugh that makes him feel funnier. And he loves it when the crew would laugh or break up. But, he would just do that. And I would hold it for as long as possible. And then, the absurdity of it would just crack me up. His intent was so, like a dog with a bone.
Yeah. Yeah, man. There's so many great gags on Tool Time. Like I automatically think of like when he goes to paint the wall and it's like you. I love that gag.
The color Al.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That one.
Yeah. Well, we had an episode in a later year where he had a doweling. And we even had somebody come in and choreograph, maybe like a little stage fight with doweling.
Yeah.
And, before I had it, he would have the doweling,
Yeah.
right in my face, and at one point I went, and I took it from him, and he goes, okay, all right, that's good. I want to work on something. And so the next day he says, do that thing again. And so he goes, and I go, and he had another one in his back pocket. He goes, back me up. Oh, it was like, okay, I can build on that. If he's going to steal my thing, I have another one, and then we can have the fight. And so, yeah, it did build sometimes like that. It was there was an episode where Tim builds a soundproof room, and we didn't really have the button of the joke. We didn't have the joke yet by Friday, and we would rehearse it Monday all the way to Friday when we would film in front of an audience. And this is one of the few times Tim and I went to the side and go, well, it's not working. I know. And I'm not sure. Okay, well, I'm going to go in. I'm going to convince you. It's like that. And then you go in and do something. And so we kind of had that, but not really. I have to go back and look. Literally, I have to go back and look at the scripts, because I have the scripts from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday somewhere in my archives. But, Tim makes this big deal about it's a soundproof room, and Al does not believe him. It's like, I don't believe you. And he goes, okay, I'm going to go into the room. Now I'm going to, and Al's like, wow, oh, wow. That's amazing. Well, try it out. I go, and I go in, of course, and I go, okay, I'm in here. Now I'm going to shut the door. You can't hear me now, can you? And Tim's going, and I can hear the audience laughing, because I know this guy going, and I didn't know, I didn't have script necessarily to follow. I just started saying, well, I should be the host of this show. I just said just the most bizarre stuff that all pent up Al would have inside of him. And then I decided I would sing a song. And I go, and this is all in nanoseconds. And I'm going, well, I can't sing anything that they're going to have to pay for, because it'll be cut. Right. If I take a song that they have to pay for, it's not going to make it. So I know Gilbert and Sullivan. They can't charge you for Gilbert and Sullivan. So I sang, I am the very model of a modern Major General. And that stayed in there because they didn't have to pay for it. And it was funny. It worked.
I always figured that the tool time segments of the show were always the funnest to shoot and maybe even take the longest because, there's an audience that you're playing to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, when they had to edit it down for syndication, Carmen Finestra, our creator, one of the creator writers, took it upon himself to be in the editing room, what to edit. 2 minutes out of a 22-minute show, 2 or 3 minutes out of a 20, that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
He made sure that it was things that was funny, but maybe not as important would stay in there, and other things. But they rarely took tool time stuff out. Tool time was pretty. And if you go back and look at it, tool time was only a few minutes out of the shows most of the time.
Yeah.
The cold opening or the cold ending or a couple of minutes here and there. But boy, it was jam packed with image and a joke, and you remember it.
Oh yeah. Some of my favorite stuff's the tool time stuff. With the guys making the food you can make when you're like working, with the grilled cheese
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Yeah.
The toasted cheese sandwich on a brick layer, on a trowel.
Yeah.
Oh God, when the KMB boys showed up, I walk out onto the set and I see these guys, and one of them's name is Casey Sander. And I go, Casey Sander? I went to junior high with a Casey Sander. He was a year ahead of me, and then he went to a different high school. But I remember a Casey Sander, and I go, so Casey, where are you from? Are you from Seattle? He goes, yeah. I went to X-Time with you. He goes, no. Oh my God, that's right. Oh my gosh. And, small world, very small world.
Yeah.
And they ended up being regulars. Mickey Jones, the guy with the beard.
Yeah.
He was a drummer for
Okay.
like Kenny Rogers in the first edition.
Really?
Trini Lopez. The Beatles opened for them. He has a picture with the Beatles.
Yikes.
I mean, he didn't have the beard, but he had the big pompadours. Oh my God, this is back in the day. But Mickey just talked. He loved to talk. You would know his whole life story, in one day of rehearsal, and then singing. He lost his voice, talking so much. By the end of the week, we're trying to do the show, and he's lost his voice. And so if you go back and watch the first KMB boys, you go, yeah, that's I modeled it after Al because he's my hero. He could barely talk.
That's that I always thought that was like, it's funny that you say that he lost his voice. I always thought he played that like he was getting emotional, that he was with his hero. That's how I always figured that. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean by the audience adds all sorts of stuff that we rarely intend, or we intend, but sometimes they add things that just aren't there, but could be.
Yeah. Super well-rounded show. You have the laughs, but one of the darkest episodes of television I think I've ever seen was that episode where Randy gets this cancer scare. I
Yeah.
remember being like, whoa, like where'd this come from? You know what I mean? Like,
And then Tim had to deal with that.
yeah, that was heavy.
That was real emotion. I mean, Tim and emotion was difficult. He actually stopped a scene because he thought Pat was crying for real.
Really?
So I go, wait. Are you okay? Are you okay? And she's going, yes, I'm okay. We're doing the scene.
Yeah.
I'm acting. So, oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can understand why he could get a little maybe unsure of himself around like other actors that have been doing it longer than him. Plus, I think there's always, with comedians in general, they always have like a unsure, like they do that one thing, and if they leave the trail, like they get very iffy if they can do other things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, with stand-ups, it's like they rarely want to do the same joke again. It's like they really want to just do something different. We already got that one. Let's do that. Yeah, and Tim reined himself in for the most part, but he would explore, he would try different things or different ways of saying stuff. So he found those ways of doing it.
Al Borland, I assume, the ladies love Al Borland. A lot of fan mail. Was he a big fan mail guy?
He, I don't know if I got as much fan mail as the Tool Time girls,
oh, yeah,
and Jonathan, who was,
of course.
a teen beat idol. But
Yeah.
Al got his fair share of marriage proposals from women in Utah and Wyoming and Montana. I got my own ranch, and I'm pretty self-sufficient. But I think I think you'd really enjoy it out here.
Yeah, Home Improvement discovered Pam Anderson, right? If I remember correctly.
Well, Pam did the first two seasons, and I
Yeah.
don't think Disney realized that she had been a Playboy playmate.
Really?
I don't think they did. Yeah, they kind of snuck her in there at the end, and the same way that after the part way through the first season, the press got a hold of the idea that Tim had been in prison.
Yeah.
And so he had to come out in front of that too. All of these things that you find out, and you've got to go. You got to go. Well, I should get ahead of this, and but still, Pam was wonderful. She was really. That was one episode where I did something that hadn't been in the script yet. Was she comes running over? Al, my heater's not working. Can I stay at your apartment? And I'm talking with Tim, and I looked at Tim, and I went, because he always did that, that satisfied grunt,
Yeah.
and I just went under my breath. I went, stayed in, cracked him up.
Yeah, I want to say that Pam, she was at like a baseball game or something like that, and some casting director noticed her in the Megatron or something, and was just like,
well, she had done a Labatt's commercial too, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think she was on the Jumbotron at well, she's from Vancouver. She's from a very small town on Vancouver Island, which, oddly enough, my family visited that little town of Ladysmith. It's got like one dock, a pump, for your boat, and a grocery store. Wow. But I remembered Ladysmith, and that's where she was from. Little things, just all these little things, just kind of, coalesce into this wonderful career.
Yeah, Al Borland being so lovable and such a big part of the show. Was there ever talks of getting a spin-off show for Al?
There were. They actually had an idea of spinning off Harry's Hardware.
Oh, okay.
But there was a weird kind of a thing where the producers were kind of in a lawsuit about. It's always the bottom line. But when the show started, Wind Dancer, which was their company, partnered with Buena Vista TV, which was the TV arm of Disney, and they sold it to ABC. So when a couple of years in, Disney buys ABC, they wanted to sell the show to themselves for less, and Wind Dancer goes, no, we can go to CBS, NBC. This is a hit. We can make so much more. And so there was this weird kind of energy that persisted to this day. I mean, about 5 years ago, when Bob Iger came back to take over for Disney again, he called Tim into the office and he goes, "Hey, maybe we should do a reboot, and do the show again." And Tim goes, "Yeah, I would love that. Have you talked to your lawyers?" And he goes, "No." So, well, let's talk to your lawyers. Get back to me. Like a week later, he goes, "Okay, yeah, all right, we can't do that."
Wow.
So it's still there. It's still a thing.
Yeah, man. Because Home Improvement they brought back Roseanne, Full House got brought back. Home Improvement would be great to kind of bring back.
And Tim had a great idea. He thought it would be interesting to have the pilot of the comeback show be at Wilson's funeral.
Okay.
Because he had passed away.
Yeah.
And so now we can all get back together at an event that makes sense, and then go, hey, maybe we should start the show again. It's been a few years, yeah, or whatever. But who knows? But
give him
just never came to be.
Give him the 100 nail gun salute type deal.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mr. Binford.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was an old warhorse of an actor. The guy who played Mr. Binford. He was in Last Picture Show.
Okay.
I mean, he'd done some stuff, but he couldn't always remember his lines, and he would just he would just make stuff up. Oh, Tim, I'm having a tough the cart's in the ditch. Yeah, he would just make up stuff, and we. But he was great. He was great to work with. It was really fun. We got to work with really cool people. I mean, we had Ernest Borgnine on. Yeah. We had Jack Elam. We had the Beach Boys.
Yep.
We had Alan Jackson. We had oh my gosh, just one after Chris McDonald.
Okay, yeah.
Chris McDonald played Shooter.
Yeah.
Not Shooter. No, he's known as Shooter.
Shooter. Yeah.
Who did he play? He played the Stooster. Stooster.
I know.
Yeah, we had good people.
You had Ernest Borgnine. I remember vividly from the episode where Mr. Binford passes away, and then Tim's at like the bar with Ernest, and I forget who the other actor. The other actor is
Jack Elam.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, yeah.
Jack Elam, who didn't start being an actor till he was like in his 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
He was an accountant at Warner Brothers, and he's looking down at them doing silent movies, basically.
Yeah.
And he's going, I could do that. And so he just decided to do it. He became like this amazing Western villain.
Yeah.
Because he had that bizarre eye that would just, drift off.
It was a Thanksgiving special where Tim goes and the family go to like a Lions luxury box for like a football game, and we got the great Rodney Dangerfield, legendary.
Oh
character.
yeah.
Rodney. Yeah, you got any story?
Tim did Rodney's
HBO specials.
Dangerfields in New York.
Okay.
Which, oddly enough, I was being a waiter a block and a half up the street at Fridays, TGI Fridays, the original Fridays.
Yeah.
And Tim was at Dangerfields, and he slept on the couch in his office. So he and Rodney go way back.
Yeah, Rodney's a dude that he's legendary as a comedian, but then you think about all the comedians that he opened the door for. It's like,
Yeah.
it's literally everybody big. You know what I mean? It's Roseanne, Seinfeld, Dice, Robert Townsend. There's so many, the list is like endless.
The list goes on and on.
Tennyson.
And I went to New York City during that whole, stand-up time where it just exploded. You had the Improv, you had Caroline's, you had Dangerfields, you had all these different places where stand-ups could do that. And I thought about doing it. I don't have that dedication to failing and rewriting and failing and rewriting.
Yeah, it's tough. Well, like in the 90s, they say it was like was the time for comedians to get sitcoms. You know what I mean? Like that was the golden era for them. Nowadays, I think it's a little more different. I think a lot of more people get in through the door, which is good. But like back in the day, I think it was there wasn't as many doing them, but they were like I don't know. Yeah, just legendary. I don't think. I hate to say it, but like a lot of even the comedians I like now don't feel like they have that lasting power that some of those like 80s and 90s.
Well, the ones that did work was that in their act, they had a worldview.
Yeah.
They had a worldview that writers could take that central idea and then build around it. Like Tim's guy power. Manpower, just the masculinity of what Tim was doing, going to Sears and grunting and that whole, going into a forest and beating on a drum kind of a thing from the 90s. Seinfeld had his worldview. Roseanne had her worldview.
Yeah.
You had all these different guys, Drew Carey, that just had something that the writers could build around.
Yeah.
And I think that helped a lot.
Al being such a lovable, some people would say kind of the unfortunate part of playing a character that huge and beloved in a huge show like that is that it's kind of a typecasted thing. Have you ever wanted to play like a darker character, but like people's perception gets in the way of that?
Yeah, well, actually, I played a cult leader on a show called Dirt, I think.
Okay.
One of the actresses from Friends.
Okay.
Tony Cox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Courtney Cox. And I played a cult leader, which was dark
Yeah.
for me. But I always gravitate towards things that are funny or things that are can be both. I just did an episode of the Lincoln Lawyer,
Yeah.
which was I hadn't done a hour long drama for a long time, and that was fun to watch and or watch the process and
Yeah.
and be in and do. So I mean I won't come out for another year. It's the fifth season. The fourth season I think just dropped in February.
Do you have a process? I'm sure you do, but can you give us like an inside look? And are you a guy that likes to, create the character, bring it to the director, off the script, of course.
I don't think I'm that as intense.
Yeah.
There is script analysis of what what you say as the character, what other people say about you as the character,
Yeah.
and what you think would be good in this moment. But it just kind of all evolved naturally over time. I mean, some of the stuff I learned in school I had to forget,
Okay.
because it just wasn't right. I mean, I almost literally, I was almost not kicked out, but released in my third year of the program because of my speech. I didn't have proper, stage speech for our teacher, and he made me do some classes and this and that, and then you find out years later, your particular voice, however you say stuff is really, really important. I mean, it maybe not for classical theater, but Christopher Walken is Christopher Walken because of the way he talks.
Yeah.
All these different. I mean, there's a new sitcom, Luann. She has this beautiful syrupy Southern accent that's just fabulous. That wouldn't work, for Shakespeare necessarily because it's not theater, but it works for her and for her stand up and for her TV show. So
Yeah. Do you, when you're on set, are you a music guy? Do you ever, cross over music that you listen to into the character, or like listen to certain stuff when you're gonna be like, did Al ever listen to like, upbeat, happier music and then maybe doing the cult leader stuff? You
no,
the
I
dark wig?
never got that in depth. And
Yeah.
they loved making Al. He was into square dancing.
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
into a lot of things that were just really kind of corny, but it made Al Al.
Happy. It made him happy.
It just made him him. And there's a lot of my dad in Al, because he was a builder, he was a contractor,
Yeah.
so I would pull from that. And then as you get older, you just pull from life experience, and all the stuff. We steal things from other people. We might not try and impersonate exactly how they sound, but there's things that we just go, oh, that's an interesting turn of phrase or whatever, or a point of view about something, and I might use that, later on. When I was doing a Neil Simon play, I was doing You Ought to Be in Pictures, and Neil Simon writes in cadence, a very and the character I was playing was basically Neil Simon, and this guy who leaves his family and becomes a writer in California and leaves them in New York, and his 18-year-old daughter or 17-year-old daughter tracks him down and finds him. And I found myself, talking in that cadence and having conversations with my son that were way more blunt because that character was really blunt.
Yeah.
Didn't pull punches, and I might as the dad, and all of a sudden I stuff was coming out of my mouth and going, wow, that's that's a little bit of that character.
Do you have any favorite episodes, personal favorites of Home Improvement?
Oh, there are the the time when we did the soundproof room was a favorite.
Yeah.
One of the first episodes where we go outside of tool time is when I take Tim to this fishing hut, out on the lake, out on a frozen lake. And I remember distinctly talking to the writers going, we're not in tool time. There should be a different feel of how we're talking to each other, or there should be something different. And I really didn't know how to articulate what I needed or wanted. And I kept pressing. And over the week, they changed little things here and there. I think they got kind of what I intended, but it was really hard. And I felt pretty satisfied at the end of the week that I finally spoke up and did something like that.
Yeah.
But so that became a favorite episode. The ones with Jack Elam and Ernest Borgnine were great because of the conversations we had off stage. They would just tell us about old Hollywood and all the things. And Ernest Borgnine was in McHale's Navy.
Yeah.
And he hated playing the straight man. He would go into the offices and he'd go, I really would like a joke because all these other guys are getting laughs. And, every few weeks they'd have to remind them, they're getting laughs because of you. You're not the one, you're the rock that everybody kind of crashes off of. We need you to be that. We're not going to write jokes for you.
The Bob Vila appearances were always fun. With him and Tim were always button heads. Those are good times.
Yeah, Bob didn't like us at first.
Oh, really?
No, he showed up. The show hadn't even aired yet, and he shows up on stage, and I go, well, it's Bob Vila. I guess he can just walk onto the stage. Somebody at Disney just let him come in, and he's walking around. He's got like this chip on his shoulder, and he's looking, and he's going, so you guys are going to make fun of this whole thing that I've created, this iconic thing I've created. You're just going to make fun of it. And Tim and I were like, yeah, I guess we are. And he leaves, and we look at each other and we go, well, he'll never be on the show.
Yeah.
And literally like 3 months later, the writers come down and go, Bob Vila's going to be on the show. And we go, really? He hated us. He goes, well, he's seen the show now. He's not as, he's not mad anymore because, we didn't make fun of him. We just created, a softer thing to what he had created.
Yeah.
Actually, what's funny is the kind of going back to my comment about you guys kind of being like Bud Abbott and Lou Costello, is that when they were first doing like, Abbott Costello meets Frankenstein and all of that, starting with the Hollywood horror icons, they wanted Boris Karloff to be the Frankenstein in that movie. And he, like Bob Vila, was like, no, because he feared that they were going to make fun of the horror characters,
right.
him and all of that. So he said, no, I'm not going to have anything to do with that. So they got another actor, Glenn Strange, to play the Frankenstein monster. And after that movie came out, Boris Karloff realized what they were going to do. He ended up doing 2 movies with them later. One was Jekyll and Hyde, and another one was Meet the Killer. So it's kind of very similar, kind of like history repeating itself, where you will have something that someone has helped create, and then you have the new guys. They come in just to poke a little fun, have a little humor, and of course the establishment, Bob Vila is going to be like, well, I'm not going to like that you guys are going to make fun of what right. I helped create. And then, of course, they come around when they realize that it is an homage. It is not making fun of. It is, having fun, like having a joke together, not at someone's expense.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you get involved with Family Feud?
The year before, I got a call to be one of the panel celebrities on the pilot of the remaking of To Tell the Truth. And John O'Hurley was the host. And do you remember to tell the truth? You had to decide who was lying and who wasn't.
Yeah.
And I sat next to like Paula Poundstone, and I did that, and the pilot got picked up, and they go, well, would you like to do this? And I go, no, I don't want to do a game show, but thank you. I had a lot of fun doing the pilot. That was fun. So a year later, they call me and go, well, would you like to be the host of Family Feud? And I go, what? Really? What about Louis Anderson? You go, well, Louis is going to be leaving. And I go, let me think about that. And I turned it down at first. I go, no, I don't want to do this. And then they convinced me, come on, it's like family entertainment. It's, you've done family movies, you've done family TV, this is family entertainment. So I went, okay, all right, I'm in. And I, if I'm in, I'm in. I'm full force in, and I had fun. I had a lot of fun. I remember making fun of Richard Dawson back when I was in school. Yeah. Literally, yeah. A friend of mine, Kevin Moriarty, and we would just say stupid things. Show me, chicken necks, or whatever. Number one answer. We would just make stuff up and laugh and be funny and full circle. 20, 30 years later, I'm doing the show with the NASCAR drivers. Parts of a chicken come up. Yeah. and this doesn't dawn on me, because I'm thinking breast, thigh, what else is there? Yeah. And one of the pit crew guys goes, chicken necks. And it hit me like I wanted to stop the show and just laugh and like that, and I go, no, I can't do that. It's like, and under my breath, I went, all right, Kev, this one's for you. Show me chicken necks, and it was up there. It literally was up there.
Yeah,
just small world. Yeah.
Now those are shows. Don't they do like 3 or 4 in a day? Is that how they do those?
We did 6. We did 6 in the morning, cut for lunch, 6 in the afternoon.
Really?
Yeah, 12 in a weekend.
Holy mackerel! That's
yeah. That was they wanted to do 3 days in a row, and vocally I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I'd be like Mickey Jones. I'd lose my voice because they didn't give me a really good earpiece to hear myself. So I felt like I had to talk over the audience, which was laughing and being rowdy, and I didn't have to do that, but I couldn't hear myself properly, and I was always a little too loud. But I did it for 4 years. Had a great time.
Yeah. Man, that's like a crazy schedule. You know what I mean? Just to bang out 6. How long do you think it usually takes to nail down one episode? Like just the one episode?
I did it pretty close to time. When the first week or the first day, basically, I do this. I do the first part of the show, and we finish the first episode, and I go up to my dressing room, and I'm changed into a new suit, and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting, and I come down and I go, what's going on? Why are we taking so long? He said, well, we're waiting for you. I go, you're waiting for me? He goes, yeah, well, Louis would usually take like an hour nap in between shows. I go, oh no. If I take too much time, all my energy just crashes. Right. Let's keep going. And we were done by 6 p.m. Jeez. And the crew was like, wow, it's 9 o'clock by the time we're done.
Man.
Yeah. So, I work way better in time. And oddly enough, all the funny stuff that would happen, I couldn't remember it because it was in real time, and you got to stay in the moment. Yeah. You can clock and you go, yeah, that was funny. What was that? Yeah. And then you forget. And I finally told them to, mark things that were funny so you can use those as outtakes or bloopers or something. That would be fun to do. And I also made them do a Halloween because of Home Improvement.
Hell yeah.
We started the whole Halloween thing.
Nice. Yeah, Home Improvement, one of the great Halloween episodes. You know what I mean? Another thing you don't get anymore, like sitcoms now, like the 90s Halloween specials, you'd wait all year to see them. They were so good. You know what I mean? Nowadays, I don't even know if they do Halloween specials anymore.
Well, everything is streamed, so they don't know when October is going to be.
Yeah, I guess so. Jeez. I've always wondered with Family Feud, was there anybody ever get crazy or like sore losers or anything like that? People get
No, not sore
angry?
losers, but I did have a family. The woman literally had 29 kids.
Really?
I don't know how that happened, but one of the kids, and she was at the end of the line. She was the fifth one down. She follows me into the elevator up to my dressing room. She goes, Richard, you're the only one I can talk to. You're the only one I can trust. I don't think my family likes me. They're and we got to go back and finish the rest of this episode. And I was just going up for a quick break, and she's like having an episode, a psychotic break almost. And I go, no, I have no idea what to do. I'm like, no, your mom had how many kids, and they chose you. They chose you. So come on. They have to think that you are, and we finished it, but either she was off her meds or whatever. But that was a scary moment. I had no idea what was going to go on.
I do have to ask. One of the biggest things that you always hear, that sometimes the hardest people to work with on the set, on the film set, and all of that are children and pets. And I know that you've been in a few Air Bud movies.
Oh, I've worked with animals. I've worked with children. Yeah.
Yeah.
Children know their lines.
Yeah.
They're and they know everybody else's lines.
Yeah.
So they're right there usually. The animals, sometimes you have to do things. I did an episode, or not an episode, but I did a movie with the same producers as the Air Buds. They had another string of movies called MVP, Most Valuable Primate.
Oh yeah.
With like a monkey.
Yeah.
And the first one that they did, the monkey played basketball or something. I can't remember what he did. Hockey. He played hockey. And then I came in, and I was in the second one where he was a skateboarder.
Okay.
And so my name was Ollie, a skateboard term, but and so I had a scene with the two kids and a monkey. And it's late at night, and they've come over to my apartment or my house, and there's something wrong, and I bring them in, and we have hot chocolate. And the whole joke was supposed to be that while we're talking, the monkey is taking all the marshmallows and putting them in his mouth. And then, they were going to cut to him smiling with all these marshmallows in his mouth, and he wouldn't eat the marshmallows. And we, fifth take, sixth take, and he's not going after the marshmallows. So, I finally, I look at him, and I reach for the marshmallows, and he's like, and I keep reaching, and I take a marshmallow, and I put it in my mouth. He's going, whoa. And then he gets a marshmallow, and he puts it in my mouth. And out of the corner of my eye, I can see the trainer's like a little tense, like, we cut. And I think we used that bit, but he said, that's his food. You take a monkey's food, and he could have attacked you. And I go, well, it's good to know that now.
Yeah.
But he said, but you with your beard, I think he felt you were the alpha monkey in the room.
There you go.
So, yeah. This close to monkey death.
That's intense, because you hear, not a lot, but you hear of things like them ripping off faces and all types of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, even when they're really friendly, you never know what's going to make them snap.
No, you don't. You have no idea. Because they're a different species.
Yeah.
As much as we want to think that they think like us, no.
Do those trainers ever do they keep anything on them? Like, if something was to happen, that they could not kill it, obviously, but
no, they didn't have a collar or anything on this monkey for whatever reason.
Yikes.
So no, I was out there on my own.
Man.
Yeah, I'm sure you enjoyed working with the golden retrievers over the monkey a little more.
The golden retrievers were fun, and the whole idea of the kids with the dogs, that was a lot of fun. And I took over for a friend of mine, but he did the first one and he didn't want to do the next one, so I did like the next three.
Of the earbuds or the?
Yeah, of the Air Buddies, and one other. Yeah.
So a lot of it when the dogs are, is that a lot of that CGI, or is there any of that like practical, like?
It's mostly practical. There's some CGI, but mostly it's, and they have like 2 or 3 of the dogs that will do different things, and so they'll switch them out because they look very much alike. So
Airbud a diva? I heard Airbud was a diva.
I think Lassie was the diva.
Yeah. Well, those dogs, isn't there like a handful of them? Like it's not just one dog, right?
Yeah.
Like
They have to have multiples. They do, just to keep things moving along quicker.
I think I read somewhere that, again, same reason why they have, like, for example, the youngest girl in Full House, that there were twins.
Yeah.
The Olsen twins.
Yeah, the Olsen
and
twins.
And the fact is, when you have like babies like that, you can then have one for, and then when they get cranky, and then move.
Well, not necessarily when they get cranky, but legally they can only work for so many hours.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm assuming they probably, I mean, not only for like the dogs doing specific tricks, but they probably also have a thing that, if the dog gets, kind of tired, or, too rambunctious or something like that, they probably also, switch it out for another dog so they can keep going and not be slowed down by
what's going on. Yeah. Sure.
Well, you got to be,
absolutely.
You got to consider not only like physically draining, but mentally draining, because you can't communicate with a dog. You're just like, do this, and it probably, like, after a while it probably gets caught up and like, what is this person doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, most of the takes aren't, they aren't necessarily 2 shots with you and the dog. It's a lot of it's 1 shot, so that you can do stuff, and then they'll edit it in the dog doing something. So
yeah, the double kid thing is very, the Big Daddy kids, that was twins. They got their own TV show after that too, but that's the way to do it.
We premiered on Tuesday night opposite Seinfeld, and they literally had to move Seinfeld because we were beating Seinfeld. And they moved them to Thursday night, and that's when must see Thursday night TV started.
Yeah, because those first couple seasons of Seinfeld, like, if whoever didn't keep pushing Seinfeld on the people, they would never have been as big as they became. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, a lot of shows come into their own like 3rd season in a way, or used to. Now they have to like right away. Otherwise, they don't get a 2nd season.
You guys did have a crossover with Soul Man with Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah, because of the same writers. Yes, we did. We got to work with Dan Aykroyd, and that was fun. That was interesting to get to know Dan. Yeah, he had some interesting things. That whole Ghostbusters, that's real to him.
Oh yeah,
there's some real stuff in there. Even though it's supposed to be a comedy and funny, but he's really into the paranormal.
When you say that Dan Aykroyd believes in them Ghostbuster deal, is he on set? Is he like in it? Is he like trying to get everybody convinced in aliens and ghosts and stuff?
No, he's not hardcore that way, but you can tell that he's a fan and he believes it, and and he's got police badges from like 40 different states. He's just got these bizarre connections to certain things.
Where he's been like, what do they call that when they let you
ride along?
Yeah, like a ride along deal, but they give you the full package still. Like Steven Seagal got that too, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if Dan was as intense as Seagal.
Yeah, Aykroyd's legendary. I love when he gets. He's got like an alien show. I think he has a new show that's like alien or ghost. Obviously, Ghostbusters, he created it. But I want to say that he's got like a new, maybe conspiracy show. I've seen it somewhere.
I did a show about aliens.
Yeah. How do you feel? I know you.
I did a 10-part series on
of the gods.
Chariots of the Gods.
Yeah, the Chariots.
Eric von Daniken.
Yeah.
Eric Von Daniken, who was on the show with me, and he's like, Richard, the pyramids in Mexico, they are the same distance as our planets. And this one they just found in 1950 is the same distance as Mercury that we just discovered. And the only explanation, extraterrestrial. I'm going, okay, all right, all right.
Where do you sit with that stuff?
I think there are possibilities.
Yeah.
You know, they're just, who knows?
Right.
I mean, look how much of our history is changing. Things that we thought, were one way, and then we go, well, this rock is 20,000 years older.
Yeah.
Or, and now with AI and all this stuff online, they make up all this stuff. So you don't even know what's real and what isn't.
That's the thing.
So we're really messing up our global history. Yeah, our combined storytelling that used to, have some semblance of passing stories down through the ages, and now we're just kind of going off in left and right.
There's I heard recently that supposedly on Easter next Sunday, there's supposed to be something in the alien world. They speak of it. There's two guys talking about it. A guy that was supposedly abducted, and then there's a dude that was like he died in like 96, but he claimed that in 2026, supposedly he predicted we were going to be at in some type of conflict with Iran, which we kind of are in now. That was going to be happening, and that aliens were going to come forward. But it's a weird time with aliens, because even I think Obama recently said aliens were real, and Trump.
Well, no, and then he walked it back. He said, I kind of offhandedly said that, and then in a real interview, he goes, no, there was never any. I never saw any real evidence. But who knows? Maybe somebody said, hey, you can't say that.
Yeah, I remember Donald Trump said he shouldn't have talked about that or something like that. So,
well, can you believe anything that Donald Trump says? No, you can't.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's
so if Donald Trump says that there's no such thing as aliens, we know that in fact there must be.
We know that he's just talking.
Yeah.
Yes, that is true.
He's gonna fill the time, But yeah, I'm curious. The alien thing it's weird. I dabble a little bit in the madness of it all, and there was a theory that aliens were really interdimensional demons, which I thought was an interesting take on it. You know what I mean?
Well, demons, that's kind of a human word.
Yeah.
It's like they're interdimensional beings.
Yeah.
But why would we label them as a demon?
Well, their theory was because of like the triangle, all the triangles is like a satanic thing supposedly, and then the fact that if you were to say that if aliens were real, then it kind of like naysays the whole God thing because they're not in the Bible or whatever. I don't know.
I think the overall thing is that we as people always have to try to explain we don't understand. Yeah. It's like back in the days of the Greeks, you had so many gods. So we went out fishing and a big typhoon happened. That's because we pissed off Poseidon somehow. It's we as people, I think, just have a need to explain everything that happens in a natural world.
Yeah, kind of like teenagers.
Yeah.
Well, they see something once and they go, "Oh, well, that's always happened."
True.
Weird. The world.
No, it's just you don't have a perspective of time and life experience.
Yeah.
So you're trying to put layers on your own experience. And that's why we need education.
Exactly.
That's why it's so important to have real education. We have knowledge that is handed down through the years, and just don't muck with it.
I mean, the whole thing about learning history and all that is, if you know your history, then because those who don't know the history are doomed to repeat it. And the thing is, we got to learn from experiences of those before us, so we can better be ready for the future.
Right. Right.
That was poetic. That was very poetic. You stole it, but it was poetic. You know what I mean?
I try.
Well, do you want to ask Richard anything else before we
Uh,
let him go?
Nothing much other than I gotta say, is there any person? I mean, being on Home Improvement and being in a lot of other TV shows, have you been able to work with like someone that you really admired, during Home Improvement or any other shows?
I don't know if I ever put it into those terms. I really enjoy working with people. Um, I don't know if we had anybody, iconically in my own personal experience that I got to work with. I mean, I knew Ernest Borgnine and Jack Elam, but they were I enjoyed their work, but it wasn't like if I'd gotten to work with Robert Redford, I think I really enjoyed Robert Redford's work throughout the years, and I didn't get to work with him, but everybody has really great stuff in them if you just pay attention and listen.
Yeah.
That's how I worked with Tim.
Yeah.
I didn't know who Tim was.
Yeah. Well, that was
but I trusted his comic timing.
Yeah.
And trust is a big deal. You got to trust.
Yeah, because Tim, coming from that was the first thing Tim ever did, right? Like he didn't do anything.
No.
He did comedy, obviously. But
well, yeah, I mean, he would sell out 10,000 seat houses.
Yeah.
So he did stand up, and that's a very good 1 hour, and then he did the Showtime special.
Yeah.
The Men Are Pigs tour.
That
So
huge,
he did those kind of things, but nothing as structured as like a weekly TV show.
Right. To piggyback off Alex's last question, with how big the show become, was there anybody that surprised you that reached out or that you talked to that you were surprised to hear that they were like big fans of the show?
Well, yeah. Whenever I would meet somebody, I mean, I was in line at the Golden Globes, with my wife, and we're standing in line. We're moving through the whatever it was, and I realized that Tom Hanks is like right in front of me, and we had just seen Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And I said to my wife, "I'm going to say something." I said, "No, don't leave him alone." I go, and I tap him on the shoulder and I go, "Tom," and he turns around and goes, "Richard, oh my God, I love you on that show," and that caught me by surprise because I was about to gush all over him, and he like turned it on me. So there's that.
That's very cool. I remember you got to play golf. You and your father got to play golf with some presidents or something like that, right?
Well, with Ford, President Ford, and Bob Hope.
And Bob Hope, yeah.
I was in Bob Hope's foursome.
Yeah.
And our pros on the 4 days of the Bob Hope Chrysler Classic. The first day was Kenny Perry, who had won the year before. The second day was Tom Kite. The third day was Arnold Palmer. Classic. And the fourth day was Fuzzy Zeller. I mean, I just had an amazing week playing with, Gerald Ford. And Gerald Ford was so wonderful to talk to. He had this beautiful voice, just the tone of his voice. And I get a letter a couple of weeks later, and it goes, "Dear Rich, Betty and I would love to host you if you come down to the desert anytime." And then like a week later, I get another letter. "Dear Rick, my secretary says you don't go by Rich."
Yeah.
So I have like these two letters from,
classic
President Ford.
Whenever I hear Arnold Palmer, I think of the iced tea, of course. And there was this thing I heard recently that there's a big famous drink called Liquid Death now. It's like sparkling water or something. And
it's water.
Yeah. And I guess they tried to name their drink the Arnold Palmer because it was like, what is it, iced tea and lemonade mixed or something like that?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's lemonade and iced tea and some vodka, if you want to dig deep. But I never understood why they would put lemonade in sweet tea.
Yeah.
I thought the whole point of putting lemonade in tea is just you don't use sugar, you use lemonade.
Yeah. Yeah. I dig it. I buy them. Back when those Arizonas were 99 cents. I don't know about where you're at, but they're no longer 99 cents. They're like a buck 25, even though the can
Yeah.
says
Well, they're
99 cents.
24 ounces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Criminals. That
Yeah.
liquid death thing, it's funny. They called theirs Arnold Palmer. Arnold Palmer's family reached out and said you can't call it that, so they changed the name to Dead Billionaire. True story, yeah. Which is like, I love that. That's funny, But Richard, we had you on for a whole bunch of time here. We really appreciate having you. We haven't done this in a while. We got one last question. Is we get a lot of artists that watch the show, writers, filmmakers, musicians, artists of all types. Do you have any advice for anybody out there that might have kind of found themselves in a hole, in a lull? Maybe some inspirational things for them to kind of keep going or to get their bearings back.
Go see art. Whatever art, whether it's a movie, a play, a picture, it will spark in you that creativity that got you to where you are now. Even though maybe that light has dimmed a little bit, maybe just too many no's, or you're tired of it, or you're not getting where you want to be. But just stay in the moment. Go see stuff. It will help you, because it'll motivate you. You'll go, oh, okay, I want to do that. I do want to do that.
That's great. And definitely don't be like, disappointment happens. You know what I mean? There's going to be ups and downs.
Well, yeah.
You know
And
what I mean?
disappointment happens. I mean, you need to fail.
Yeah.
I mean, I was afraid of doing stand up because of, I was thinking it was failure. But, if I had just done it, I might be in a whole different place today. I have no idea.
You never know.
And I'm not, I could still do it.
Yeah.
If I had the energy.
Yeah. Or a one-man show type deal. Those are big now too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll just get up and talk about me.
Yeah. There you go.
Like I just did for the last hour and a half.
I'd listen. Hell yeah.
Heck yeah.
But
all right, guys.
Richard,
well, thank you. Thank you for
very
having me
much
on your show.
Hey, anytime. You're always welcome back. We loved having you. We appreciate the time, man.
All right.
All
y'all take care.
Y'all too. Have a good one. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Richard Karn. That was a lot of fun, man. He was a really cool dude. Glad to have him on the show, man. Legendary, Home Improvement. I think it's 9 seasons that bad boy ran for, and I've watched that whole series maybe like 7 times. You know what I mean? Like I say on the show a lot, there's a lot of shows that, I guess not a lot of shows, but there's a good amount of shows that I just love from my childhood that me and the lady, we just rotate out of them. You know what I mean? Like we'll watch the season, pop into another show we love, Home Improvement. Right now we're working our way through Perfect Strangers again. You know what I mean? Cheers, just classic stuff. You know what I mean? And Home Improvement, man, such a great show. And that was a show that I rocked from the first season to the last. You know what I mean? And just loved the show, man. And I watched him on Family Feud too. I didn't really get too deep into it when he was here, but he's my favorite host of Family Feud for sure. And Family Feud's one of those shows that I always loved. Out of all those like weird game showy deals that you would have, you got your Jeopardies, Wheel of Fortunes, and stuff like that. That was never really my deal. Family Feud, and even if you look at my phone right now, I have a Family Feud app on my phone because I always loved the style of like that show, the way that goes. They drop the hint, and then people pick their deals, and then you see which is the most popular ones. I always thought that was really cool. You know what I mean? So Richard's had quite a career, man, and it isn't over yet. And he was a lot of fun, man. I knew we were gonna have fun with him. I knew he was a super nice guy. And it was good to kind of get that solidified, you know what I mean, with the interview. You know what I mean? What do you think, Alexander?
Well, I have to say, I had a lot of fun. It was great listening to him. Um, again, like I said in the interview, I mean, what, in my opinion, made Home Improvement, and I'm not downplaying anyone else that was involved. It was great writing, great guest stars, great actors, actresses that made up the ensemble. But I mean, Al and Tim. I mean, those two. I mean, I watched for the Tool Time sections, and every time that those two were on set, because I mean, the back and forth was great. And again, Richard was saying, he just, he let Tim do his thing. He didn't try to upstage him and all that. And by doing that, he made everything Tim said funnier because you had that duality, you had that difference.
Yeah.
And again, it was funny because he made a comment. One of the reasons that they weren't thinking of him before was they thought that he was too much like Tim, like height wise, physicality, and all that. But what I think really worked was because they were kind of very similar that way, and how Tim was, of course, more over the top, more bombastic, and all that, and then of course Richard's Al was more reserved.
Yeah.
It kind of almost gave you the duality of man right there in those two characters, where you had the man, and then you got the more sensitive, the good hardworking guy that you could go out to a barbecue with and share your feelings with, someone more kind of that kind of level. And that's what I think really worked with the two of them, was that kind of duality.
Yeah, Al was always like the dude that knew everything about what they were doing, and Tim was like, he liked the tools, you know what I mean? Just the
He
tools.
liked the tools, he just didn't know how to really use them correctly.
I've often heard me and you, uh, yeah, me and you have been compared to Al and Tim before. On more than
Ah, so I'm Tim and you're Al.
no, I've heard it the other way around, but I'll take it. I'll take that position. Um, more than once, less than three, I'll say, without giving anything away. I've heard people make that comparison. Um, and yeah, like we were saying, like the dynamic, that dynamic, you hit it right on the head with that Abbott Costello. Like that's a legendary duo. Like when you think of duos in the comedy world that play off of each other, they're up there, man. They got to be top five of all time duo. I'd have to say it for real. Um, when he said that, I don't think so, Tim, dude, I knew he was going to say that. I knew that scene. And just thinking of it while he was doing it, I'm just like, I'm thinking of the laugh that got and why it got that laugh. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean,
it was funny with him saying that the audience puts a lot onto the actors and the characters that the actor really doesn't do themselves. I mean, again, with him saying that line and giving that beat, I know me watching it in my mind, I'm like he's in internally like all the things that you want to say but you don't, but he just holds it back and then he just delivers the safe answer. And again, like I said, it was all about the timing, and that's why it worked. And his way of delivering that line was always the cherry on top of the Tim Sunday.
he was like the voice of reason. He was the voice of the audience in a way too. Like when they
Yeah.
would see Tim do something stupid, they can't really be like, "You're stupid, Tim," but like he could do it in his own way, you know what I mean? Great dynamic. Yeah, dude, that was a really cool insight to the show and other things. Like that's what I was hoping to get, and we got it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Very good stuff. Very good stuff. You know what I mean? Al Borland, legendary.
Yeah.
He was a dude. It was the young, the guys like Tim and the girls like Al. You know what I mean? Al was sensitive. You know, he knew what he wasn't boombastic, as you say. He wasn't in your face, but it's like, you know, but he knew more. You know, you always got the impression he knew more than Tim. You know what I mean? He was the guy there, like Tim's the flashy guy, but like Al's there to make sure it doesn't go off the rails type deal.
L's the dependable one that you know is going to get the job done, and you know is a good you know rock to hold on to. I mean, never forget Pamela Anderson went home with Al Borland.
That's true. We didn't ask him about. He was on Tim Allen's new show.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we didn't get to talk about that. But yeah, he was actually because Tim Allen had Last Man Standing
Right.
that ran for a bunch of seasons, and now he's on another show called I believe it's called Shifting Gears with the actress from the Marvel movies. Um, and yeah, and of course, I mean, again, we didn't end up talking about, but it's obvious from the conversation we had with Richard that he and Tim got along very well. And of
Oh
course,
yeah.
I'm sure Tim, hit him up, says, "Hey, we got like a guest spot for you to come down and hang out and you know have some fun on the new set,
Well,
so to speak."
when you have history like that on a show, you know fans want us, you know, they have their friendship, you know, so that's like me and you. It's like we try, if we did something separate, we'd try and bring the other one in. But like add to that, like just the history, and you know people love to see that. Like whenever I see stuff like that, and I watched both of those Tim Allen shows, the what was it, Last Man Standing, and
Last Man Standing and Shifting Gears is the one that he's currently on right now.
so I haven't seen as much Shifting Gears, but I've seen a lot of Last Man Standing because the family loves it. And he's in that. You know, he comes in. Not Al. Richard played a dude who Tim owns like a wilderness store where you get like tents and toboggans and canoes. Is toboggan even isn't that like where you sled in? Maybe it was.
Well, yeah, a toboggan is like another name for a sled or a specific type of sled. I don't know what the huge difference between that and any other sled, but
Yeah, but Richard and Patricia, I believe, made cameos. I don't know if any of the kids made cameos, but Jill and Al made cameos, you know. But yeah, I liked him. I still liked him. I think, you know, he gets a little, I think people get upset with him because of political stance or whatever, which is awful. I hate that whole thing with judging people for their politics. It's like, you know, you lose a lot of good entertainment that way. You know what I mean? You know, I don't like, I don't, you know me, dude. I don't like anybody kind of doing their politics, whether it's musicians or whatever. I like the art. I like to focus on the
we
art.
only do our politicking on the side.
We tricking our politicking. You know what I mean? Tricks on the side. Tricks on the side. But before I should upset people with even mentioning politics, we'll probably wrap up the show. You know what I mean?
Okay.
This was a lot of fun. You know what I mean? Good find. The Hockenstein. Who knows everybody? Nobody wants to come on the show for Matty Fisher anymore. It's a vicious endeavor. But
Oh, don't
luckily,
say that, dude. I mean, I can only do so much, man.
everybody.
I need you to 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 up the game.
Alex used. Oh, really? That's a nice way of putting it, right there, huh? The Alex would usually the quote Alex goes, "Everybody likes you." Now the tables have turned, and everybody likes Alexander. He's
I
back.
don't know
Yes,
about that.
but no, I got some. We got some coming. We got some glorious guests coming, and this was a glorious guest today. You know, Richard Karn is the man. You know what I mean? A lot of fun. I knew we'd like him. Liked, you know, even blew my expectations out of the water. Super nice guy. You know, great stories, and yeah, just great time, man. He was really cool. You want to say anything else before we check out?
No, other than had a lot of fun, enjoyed talking to him, and love talking about Home Improvement. It was one of the my favorite shows of the '90s, and a lot of fun. And of course, one of the main reasons was because of Richard's portrayal of Al Borland.
I really wish that, like you said, dude. I really wish that they'd bring it back, dude. That's a show I'd love to see rebooted. And Tim had the idea to start it off at Wilson's funeral. Great, because unfortunately that actor passed away shortly after the show wrapped. Um, so it'd be a cool homage showing love to that dude, as well as like kicking off the show again.
Yeah.
All the kids are moved out, so the kids could come and go every now and then, but it would mainly be, Al, Jill, and Tim. When the kids come back, they'd have grandkids at this point. You know what I mean? It'd be cool. It'd be a cool deal. And you could almost, even though we kind of poo-pooed on internet stuff, that's probably a direction it would go in. It would probably be on a YouTube. Like I could see Tool Time going to like not a podcast, but like going to a YouTube show, because that's what's big now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you don't think so, look at the billions of people that watch our show. You know what I mean? It's a big deal. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. We hope y'all enjoyed this episode. You know what I mean? Y'all know, of course, we enjoyed bringing it to you. And thanks for listening. Stay tuned. More BoomBastiCAST coming in the future. Go support Richard Karn. Go hit him on socials. Support his endeavors. He's the man. And we'll catch y'all on the next episode of the BoomBastiCAST. Peace.